Folks, welcome back to So Bad It's Good. This is really exciting for me because, as you know, I don't really post a lot of TikToks, but unfortunately, I am kind of addicted to TikTok. And weirdly enough, my feed is not all Bravo, but there's a couple of people that do speak about Bravo that I do get or I get tagged in. And our guest today is one of those people. And I really think he has some of the best takes. And I love his passion for reality television. And I just really want to encourage people, obviously, to follow him on TikTok. It's Josh the Roni Stand, but also follow him on Instagram. I think this guy will have a podcast one day or maybe his own reality show. You never know. You know him as Josh the Roni Stand, but it is Josh Banfield. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's funny, I feel like the TikTok and podcast worlds are so separate that, like, obviously I admire you from afar and I'm very aware of you, but we just hadn't interacted because
Yeah.
I don't really talk to the podcast people unless they engage with the TikToks.
And I have to tell you, I'm nervous to make TikToks, like, because I'm like, well, you got it. And I also get Kate
Yes,
Riccio.
love her
I
so
don't know if I'm
much.
saying her last name, but
It's
I really
it's Riccio, but yeah.
Riccio. Sorry. I
No,
really like
everyone
her.
calls her Riccio.
Yeah, I think she's great as well.
Yes.
And it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, it almost feels like interloping at a certain point. And I already feel like an interloper sometimes talking about these shows, but I think you do it perfectly and you're so detailed. And I guess the first question before we get into the actual shows is, where did your love of reality television start?
Well, weirdly, started with Total Divas. I don't even know if you're aware of what that is, but it
That's
was.
is that WWE?
Yes, before I was a reality fan, I was a WWE fan, and they started Total Divas on E, and that was my introduction to the platform. And then, but that was like 2013, so it took me a while. I didn't start watching Bravo shows until 2021, and that was like
So
last
that was
semester.
like that was during the pandemic, right?
Yeah, it was. I was like last semester of college, very stressed about my life choices, and Housewives became my outlet. And I started posting about it soon after that. But I've really only been posting on TikTok for like a year and a half consistently. And it's funny that you say you're scared to post on TikTok because I'm scared of podcasts. So
No,
maybe we can.
there's nothing to be scared about here. In fact, like I really admire what you do and how you're able to succinctly, it takes me 2 hours to do what you do in 5 minutes and nail the same points. But I was also thinking about Total Divas, and I always tell the audience is that there is something pro wrestling about reality television in the sense that somebody's a good guy one season, somebody's a bad guy the next. Would you agree?
Yes, very much so, especially with the women. I think there is so much overlap, and I have encouraged a lot of people because when Nikki Bella slash Garcia was on Traitors, I feel like that got a lot of people aware of her. And I was like, y'all need to go watch her matches. Like, she's great. She's such a character. But obviously, they are not, there's not that much overlap in the fan bases, but there should be.
Well, I mean, when you start talking about these shows so intensely and detailed, I always think too is your own opinions and takes on these shows change. Like my takes now are different than they were 2 years ago, or sometimes something has happened in my personal life where it'll make me more sympathetic or empathetic to a cast member on a show. Does that happen to you as you get further into this?
Um, Not necessarily. I think something that's interesting is that since I did watch a lot of the shows so recently, I wasn't watching them as they were airing a lot of the time, and sometimes people will like discredit my opinion, saying that that is why I don't understand why, because I'm like a big Katie Maloney defender, for example, and people
I
are like,
love Katie Maloney. Katie
yes,
Maloney's somebody that her people don't realize what a great arc Katie Maloney has
yes,
because here is somebody that really kind of was like had to take a back seat not only in her relationship with Tom but her relationship with Stassi, and I think by the end you got to see her break out. And by the way, sometimes that doesn't mean you're the most magnetic on camera, and that's why some of the men or the toxic men or whatever we want to call them of Bravo, it's more magnetic because it's just bigger idiocy. And Katie's been there from the beginning, kind of on the right side of history, I think, all along.
yes, and I think that I'm able to see that having I watched that show, I think, early 2022. So, but I think that people who watched it maybe from the beginning got like hyped up in the Tequila Katie stuff, and they can't like look past things from 10 years ago in a way that when I watched it all somewhat recently, I'm able to see like, okay, that was a long time ago, and she has grown a lot from that.
Isn't
But
that what we're supposed to do in real life? Is actually grow like over the decades?
yeah, but
But
people
then we don't
don't.
see that with the men. Like, I mean, what is your take this, in the past week and a half with Jax Taylor? We obviously had the Valley season 2. He was on the Hot Mic podcast with Alex Baskin. And, I feel like it's Groundhog's Day in some ways with Jax, where I do have a lot of empathy for the people around him and also him himself. But it's hard because sometimes I don't even know if it feels like a con sometimes, and he doesn't even know he's conning, but he's so good at it. What are your takes on Jax and his podcast leading into the Valley?
No, I fully agree with that. I think that it's just hard to believe anything that he says. And yeah, I mean, I want to have empathy for him with what he's going through, and I hope that he really is moving in the right
Yeah.
direction for the sake of everyone around him. But I don't think that that's ever going to happen personally. And I agree with the people who said that he's probably trying to get ahead of the things that are going to come out on the season of the Valley, because that trailer did not look great for him or any of the men, really.
That's what I keep joking about. The picture makes it look like some happy romantic comedy when it's like literally the most. And by the way, I am happy from a viewer standpoint that it is like a very toxic group of
Yeah.
people when they get together. But in reality, Josh, like in your actual friend group, the conventional wisdom would be like you wouldn't be friends with these people, and they're almost forced to be because of the show.
Yeah, definitely, but it's kind of one of the best shows on TV as a
I
result of
know.
that. It's so good, and I never expected that. I love Kristen, so I was like rooting for the show, but I did not have high expectations, and then I was very impressed by it. So very excited for season 2.
It's great when a show can surprise you. And I think that's like the Bravo fandom is amazing. And we have our own issues as a fandom as well. And I remember the Valley, everybody was just like, we don't need this. We don't want this. How dare this even exist? And then everybody pretty quickly was on board. And do you think, because we got an announcement on TMZ yesterday that Vanderpump Rules is probably a month and a half out from filming the reboot, is this another situation, in your opinion, where we should just wait and see, or is this already doomed?
I don't think it's doomed at all. I mean, I'm not gonna say that I'm like thrilled that it's happening or that excited for it, but I think we should give it a chance. And I also think that the thing with the Valley that was funny that I remember from this time last year or a little bit earlier is when that initial like teaser trailer came out and it was presenting it as it was kind of like a Desperate Housewives-esque like teaser, and that's when everybody was really dragging it. So I'm gonna advise people when the Vanderpump Rules reboot trailer comes out, let's wait until the show comes
I
out
know
and
it's
we'll
a,
see what
it
happens.
really is interesting, and especially online to see the wave of fandom, and the ups and downs, and like you realize how sensitive we all are, and I guess that also means that's because we have extreme passion for something, which is really what you want. But do you ever give any credence to the fact that they're trying to keep us angry?
Yeah, I think that I'm very aware of that with the women, and I think that that's a lot of the time what I call out. Sometimes maybe more blind to that with the men because I'm always just yelling about them. But I'm aware of it. I try to be aware of it.
Who are your favorites? So Kristen Doty, Katie Maloney, those are two of your favorites. Who else are your favorites, and do they include any men?
Ariana,
Yeah, obviously.
Paige, um, men, I just TJ on Southern Hospitality, I love. Brad on Southern Hospitality, I love. And I told Brad when I was in Charleston last week that he's the only straight man on Bravo that I like, and I think that's true. I also, well, yeah, Paige, Sierra, Lindsay. I really love all the Summer House girls so much. I'm so loyal to them.
So you did just come back from Charleston last week. Was that a trip just to go visit the Southern Hospitality haunts?
Yeah, it was. I did LA in
Don't be
December.
ashamed. There's nothing to be. I love stuff like that. Are you? I mean, listen. I would live at Dorit's room at Buca de Beppo if I could.
Truly, yeah. No, I it's weird because I just never like was really a traveling person like growing up. So it's like weird for me now booking these things being like I'm going to go do this thing because I want to go see the places on reality TV, but it's fun and I'm letting myself do it. So I did LA in December and I got to go to something about her and meet Katie, which was really cool. And then yeah, did all the Southern Hospitality spots last week.
What did you think of Jax's Saloon when you came to LA?
I was very surprised by the way that it was a tent. I was not made aware of that in
So
advance.
you guys, it's attached to this bar called Rocco's, and then it's like kind of like a little tiny area inside, and then the outside is like the main outside part is tented, and it has a bunch of picnic tables, and like Brittany I think zhuzhed it up in terms of like the decor, and you see some of Jax's memorabilia on the wall, and there's only one bathroom in the place that men and women have to share, which is the odd part of it, but yeah, it's something that you have to be prepared for.
Yeah, I was not prepared, and I was definitely not prepared for the fact that the flower wall that Brittany worked so hard on was completely dead. It was like there was not a single functioning, lively flower on the
This
wall.
won't be alive, just like our relationship.
I thought Jax did it. I was like, Jax is neglecting these flowers out of spite. That was my theory. I have no basis for that, but that's what I think.
Well, like a lot of the, I think Southern Hospitality or in Vanderpump Rules, Katie must know who you are because I know a lot of them are on TikTok and they scroll and they actually do watch and pay attention. Was Katie aware of you? Did you guys have a nice conversation?
Yeah, so that was really cool. Katie, it's funny, I am like very bad at noticing when people follow me on TikTok, so I didn't even know that Katie, Ariana, and James all had been following me, and then I was like, I don't follow because I don't really follow people, so I
Yeah.
had to follow them back, and then I DM'd Katie saying that I was going to be in LA, and yeah, it was great meeting her. I was there with Kate Riccio. She got to meet her as well, and we had a really nice conversation, the three of us. She was great.
Yeah. That's amazing. Back to Southern Hospitality. This week, last week we had the finale of Southern Hospitality and the reunion, and I think you guys still are really missing out if you're not watching this show. It gets better and better each season. And I think the reunion, like my goal is to get these people an actual soundstage and not the Watch What Happens Live set, even though I'm not fully complaining. But even the reunion was magnetic from the jump. These people are like, they're so young, they're in their 20s. Everything really matters to them. And I remember in my 20s when things actually mattered to me. And I think that's the magic of it. And what I love about it is it tells all story, like everybody, gay, straight, bisexual, like it is all just one thing. They don't like knock you over the head with it. It's just life, how life is. And I thought there's been some amazing stories, but Will and Emmy, I guess they were on the Nick Vialli, I call him Nick Vialli podcast. And what did you think of Will not participating in the reunion?
I think it's a mess, and if Bravo doesn't fire him, then they are making a mistake. I don't see how they can forgive that. It was one thing to not show up at the reunion, and I feel like the mental health excuse was like an attempt at making it seem less bad than it was. But how are you
But he
going to
was
do that and
there.
then
He
go
was
on the well? Yeah,
backstage. He
yes,
was
that's wild.
backstage. And I just wonder in those like what are producers saying to him during this time? Like how is the sausage made? You're here already. And what do you like what is your overall theory because there were so many cheating rumors about him consistently over the last couple of years and he's really dodged them all, but he also kind of they put the onus on Brad all of a sudden that Bradley's like just the most evil person ever. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the specific rumors, I don't know how much I believe all of them, but I don't think that that really matters that much. I think either way, we've seen that he's kind of terrible in his own unique way and is deserving of criticism, whether or not those things are true. I understand why they felt like people were coming at their relationship, but also I think that Emmy especially seems to not really understand what she signed up for with being on a reality show. And especially in that interview, when she just the entire time she's talking about the way that all these people aren't being true friends to her because they waited to have conversations until they were on camera. And I'm like, Emmy, that's like kind of
That's
in
what
the job
reality television
description.
is.
Like they would be doing a disservice to the show if they didn't wait to have those conversations on camera.
I love that nobody has told her about waterproof mascara. I think that's been so visually amazing. I was like, wow, like under the tutelage of Erica Jane here.
I
But it,
know.
Emmy, to me, this is the interesting thing about being a fan. When I see this, I'm like, wow, Emmy's a star. But in her, like she is going through mental torture, but she's like staying in there to a degree. So she's taking all of the hits, and her boyfriend, who she wants to be her husband, is tapping out every chance he gets. And I'm wondering, like, is there a world where if Will doesn't sign up or Will doesn't get asked back, do we lose Emmy as well? How does that work? Or how do you, if you put your producer's hat on, how would you like to see it work?
I think that is going to be something they are having to think about right now because, yeah, you can fire Will as a full-time cast member, but who does Emmy really have to film with otherwise? I don't really know what that looks like, and I don't know, truthfully, that she can really have a personal storyline if Will is not allowed to film. She did say in the podcast that she is now on good terms with Michaels and Maddie still, so I guess those are people who she theoretically could have like scenes with, but I don't really see how that would work, and I don't envy the producers who have to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I know the producers get a lot of flack, but sometimes I'm like, dude, they're trying to get home to their families. Sometimes you're just like, listen, this is a filler episode. It is what it is. We can only get what we can get. And I was wondering, you're watching Beverly Hills this season, right?
Of course, yes.
What is your take on this season?
It's hard because I last season was very defensive of the show when everyone was saying how boring it was, and I didn't really think so, partially because maybe I'm kind of a Lisa Rinna hater and I didn't want the satisfaction of
Oh,
the show
brother,
being bad
same.
without
So
her.
same. But I liked Lisa Rinna at first. I just felt like by the end she
Yes,
was doing
she
a
lost it,
caricature
yeah.
of herself.
Agreed. When I go back and watch episodes from her first couple seasons, I'm like, "Oh my god, she's, like, funny, she's light," but that was just
Yeah.
not the person she was at the end. So I think I like the general direction of the show. I don't think that they need to reboot like some people are saying, but I think it's clear that a change is needed, and it's weird for me because I was always a Garcelle and Sutton stan, and I still am, but I don't know that the future of the show should necessarily have them included, unfortunately, especially Sutton. I think I would like to see Sutton maybe be a friend of for a season and see how that goes.
It's really I felt this I am a big Garcelle and Sutton fan, but I will say this is not either of their best seasons, and I think Sutton, unfortunately, she communication is such a big part on these shows. That's why I think Paige DeSorbo, no matter what people throw at Paige, she's going to be fine because she's such a solid communicator. Sutton gets so thrown really quickly and it goes south. And sometimes that's really entertaining, or sometimes it can make her look really bad. But I think as a whole, Beverly Hills this season, we're seeing repetitive scenes. And what I'm gathering is that it feels like we just won't know like this is a reality show where we will never know their reality. I feel like the Mauricio Kyle stuff has been going on for so long. We have these awkward scenes that I know they've already discussed in like private. So we see these awkward scenes for camera. I don't give a rip about Morgan Wade if she's a more than a friend, just a friend, but why can't we talk about it? Like why can't that actually Garcelle, by the way, Garcelle being really messy this week trying to bring it in and Sutton bats it away.
Yeah, that was interesting. No, I don't know what the answer is though, because I am not one of the people who says they need to just fire Kyle. I don't think that's the solution personally,
But
but I
you
don't
okay?
know.
But she's been there from the like. Listen, she is. I try to. She is one of my favorites, and I just think like there is this. Kyle never wants to have the hot potato, and like so you get a lot of scenes of her crying immediately, and like I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do, and it's like at some point you are the leader of this show. Start acting like it, and start actually sharing specific pieces of information. But I'm just as confused as Dorit and PK. Like that scene at the dinner table. What do you make of their relationship? Because I just saw some video of PK out with some new woman at some party this week while Dorit was filming Watch What Happens Live.
I feel like there has to be, yeah, a lot that we're not seeing. I think that it's clear that divorce is something that he considered, and it's kind of silly that we're like not saying that out loud at this point on the show. I also think that Dorit is somebody who is very aware of what she is saying on camera, and I think that she is working hard to put this narrative out there that this is all on PK and she has nothing to do with any of it. And I don't know that that's necessarily true. That might be an unpopular opinion, but it just feels like we've seen her be very, in the way that she is handling her relationships in the group this season, she's very intentional about the way that she handles everything, and I think calculated in a way, and I just don't believe that she is just letting PK handle everything in their separation.
Yeah. No, it's really, there feels like some mystery, some deeper part there that they're not saying on camera. So all of the subtext is so weird. Like it just really, I'm like, I always feel like I'm dreaming when I'm watching their scenes because it feels like they're saying something without saying it. And I'm trying to decode like the PK Dorit language. And then I think the thing that really didn't do itself any favors was that it was on the heels of Salt Lake City, which to me, I don't think you get more masterful than this past season of Salt Lake City. Would you agree?
Yes, definitely. I think that that makes every other show on the network look bad.
Like, even this week when Bose is doing room assignments, that's a perfect fodder for like some kind of drama, and they just accept room assignments. Like she divvied it up where everybody was happy. Where in Lisa Barlow's Vita Tequila Party, we had Bronwyn upset that she was not in the same villa as Lisa, and we got 2 to 3 episodes of content out of that. And the great thing about them, they fight and they make up within like 10 minutes.
Yeah, no. The Salt Lake City women know how to make a show in a way that very few other people do on Bravo, and I hope that all of the people on that show stay for a million years. I don't want any cast changes for the foreseeable future.
Totally agree. Now, you are a huge Bronwyn Newport fan.
I
I am
am.
as well. The one thing I will say was that I was very disappointed about what was an obvious fib about the jewelry. And it
Agreed.
really bummed me out because I was like, you don't. First off, I would have been like, I didn't think she ever bought that jewelry in the first place because I
Yeah.
thought that would be so irresponsible. But I'm like, don't do that because you don't need to do that. People, I don't know if she was like hedging her bets on like, I don't know if people will like me or not. Like, I don't know what the reason for that lie was.
I agree. I struggled with that as well. But I think the thing that I love most about Bronwyn, and I think sometimes I'm not clear enough when I'm talking about, because I will ride very hard for people like Katie Page. Bronwyn, I do as well, but I can very much see a world where I end up hating Bronwyn not that long from now. Like, she might be terrible. She might be
Yeah, we're
lying
only
about her
one
entire
season
life.
in.
Yeah, she
I loved
could.
Heather Gay the first season.
I go up and down with Heather, but yeah.
Yeah, I know I do as well. But Heather, well, there was this great thing. You were at Kate Chastain. Kate Chastain does a show on what is it, like BravoTV.com or
Yeah,
what?
it's for Bravo Insiders. It's like a subscription.
Yeah, Bravo, effing Bravo. And she, interviews Bravo celebrities, and it's a really cool show. And Heather Gay was there, and you were in the audience. And can you tell the people what you shouted? This wasn't encouraged, by the way. You shouted out something during the show.
Okay, they did encourage audience participation. I
Okay.
really wanted to make that clear that I wasn't like a crazy person just yelling. There was They were talking about the reunion because it was in between when the reunion had filmed and aired, and Heather brought up the fact that they all went to dinner after without Bronwyn, which I don't even think was that big of a deal. Bronwyn said that she was just like hanging out with Todd. Other people also said that Mary wasn't there. I don't think it was as like everyone and Bronwyn was the only one separated as Heather made it sound. But that's what Heather was saying. She was trying to have like a shady moment. And somebody in the audience like laughed when Heather said that. So they panned to the audience and asked the girl to say like what she thought of that. But she paused, so I just yelled, "Be nice to Bronwyn." And I think I was like the only man, or maybe there were like two others, but it was just like, I think maybe Heather said that she was like alarmed by, I don't know. It was like the
Oh
man in
no.
the back of the
Oh
room,
no.
like with, I don't know. It was funny. And we ended up talking about it after because there was like a meet and greet element. And when I went up to her, she like acted scared because I had just yelled at her. But we had like a nice moment. She was polite about it. I told her that I had just finished listening to her audiobook as a way of having like a peace treaty with her. But I mean, she should be nice to Bronwyn because there were multiple points in that night where she was making shady comments about her. And at that time, Bronwyn in the press was saying how she wants to be friends with Heather. She thinks that there's potential for friendship there, and Heather is taking every opportunity to take cheap shots at her. So I stand by it, and the video got a lot of views, so it was funny.
No, it was great. I mean, I personally loved it, and I also with the Bronwyn Todd thing and the dinner after the reunion, I also thought there might be a world in which it seemed like Todd was caught a little off guard with certain lines of questioning. And I thought
Yes.
maybe there was having to be a smoothing over because it is at its core a real relationship. And that's what we want to believe. And I think all of those other people that have been there 4 to 5 seasons, like I thought that moment was Seth Marks in the preview for the third part where it's like, do you have a side chick in Ohio? I thought that was going to be this big moment. And he was like, no, Andy, it's just my hand. I'm whacking off. Like, I didn't know that. So I thought maybe he just wasn't used to it. So there had to be a cooling down period afterwards, but who knows?
No, I think that's probably true. He definitely, you could see in his face, was not expecting some of the things that they said to him. Which I
But
get.
what,
I mean, why would he want to watch that show? I wouldn't
yeah,
if I was him.
why would, what do you, why do you think people go on these shows in the first place? Or actually just they covet them, they search them out, they audition for them, they try to present sometimes a false lifestyle than the lifestyle they actually lead. Why do you think that is?
I think they're, I mean, I always cringe a little bit when people say money can't buy happiness and things like that, but I guess it kind of is evidence of that because these people have money. They want fame, though, and I don't know what it is about Bravo specific fame that seems so appealing to them. I think it has to do with Bethany and the fact that they think they can launch it into being like business moguls, even though that rarely ever happens. I don't know though. I think it's interesting. And I think that it's just a very specific and weird kind of fame that for some reason they all desperately want.
Yeah, like I want better working conditions for everybody, reality stars, non-reality stars. But at this point, if you sign up for a reality television show, and especially on Bravo, and you have not done your due diligence, I mean, you cannot say that you have not been warned in some way of what these shows ultimately what ultimately happens to everybody on this cast. I feel like I always call it the hot potato. At some point, you're going to have the hot potato. The focus is going to be on you, and it's going to really determine where you go in that show and how you're viewed by the audience. And I feel like at this point, like I would love to know the intake on these housewives and what they warn them about and what they, because obviously we're intense as an audience, like, and they always say that of how intense we are. But at that point, like, I don't know, like, who is your perfect housewife or perfect reality star in terms of emotional makeup? What do you think makes the best reality star?
Well, I think not the kind of person that gets in the comments all the time and is fighting with people is definitely not. I think that always tells me that somebody probably is not in the position emotionally to be here. I think somebody who can see the benefits of it and understand that while also understanding, yeah, you're going to get a lot of shit online and that's just part of it. And it's very funny to me when they can't understand that. And I've gotten DM from housewife before, a Salt Lake City housewife who doesn't have the emotional maturity to understand that, and her name is Lisa Barlow, but that's fine.
I literally was about to say, was it exciting to hear from Lisa Barlow?
It was scary. I was not happy about it.
What was the video that you made that had her in your comments?
The video was when she was on Sheena's podcast, I want to say like 3 months ago. And it was around the time that a lot of the Salt Lake City housewives were doing press and talking about how Monica is like so much worse than Jen Shah and like generally kind of rehabbing Jen Shah's image, which I thought was so bizarre of them to do. Specifically, it was like Lisa, Meredith, and Heather that were doing that, I felt like.
Yep.
But she was on Sheena's podcast, and the specific comment was something about how like Monica is worse than Jen because Jen is harmless if you're elderly. And I was just like, what? Like, you cannot say that out loud. Like, that is so unhinged. And I don't really like Lisa Barlow anyway, but I still think I was like diplomatic in the video. I try to always be. But she didn't like that I covered
and
that.
What did she say specific? Was she like, stop it, Josh?
She said like, hey, cutie. And apparently that's always what she says to like gay guys. When I don't want to say that. I don't know if it's just gay guys, but I've seen other gay guys say that that's what she says. She said like, hey, cutie, you got to listen to the whole podcast, implying that I had it like out of context, which is not the truth. I listened to the whole thing. There was no context that changed what she said. It was a crazy thing to say with or without context. And then so I just didn't answer. I was scared. It was right after the episode had aired because she had just said to Whitney she was going to go the distance. And I was like, oh my God, please don't go the distance on me. Like, I don't want her cybersecurity people on me. And then like 2 days later, I just ignored it. I was like, whatever, I don't care. 2 days later, she commented on the same video with the same sentiment, but like less nice. And she said,
she didn't call you cutie. She's like, what up, ugly?
No, cutie. It was a little bit meaner. I don't have the screenshot because I literally saw it and immediately blocked her because I was so terrified. I was like, I don't need this. Like, I like woke up to that comment, and I wish I remembered what it said, but I don't. But she said, I remember in the comment her saying like, this video just came up on my feed, like explaining how she saw it. And I was like, no, it didn't. You DM'd me 2 days ago about the same video. I don't know. It was also like 3 a.m.
It's so interesting because there obviously is this parasocial relationship that we have with these shows, but then also people have with us, like certain content creators. And it's a really interesting dynamic because I still, to this day, 5 years into this thing, if I do get some sort of DM from a reality star or something, I'm always shocked because the first thing is, well, how would they have ever found this? And you're like, oh, well, it is out there in the public and people do like, like there's obvious answers how they found it. But I'm always shocked because, and I'm always like, well, listen, I'm nobody. Who cares? But then I was wondering, because I'll get negative comments about myself all the time. Do you get that? I mean, I think the majority is really overly positive for you, but do you have people that want to mess with you as well?
Not really. I feel like I've been very lucky in that way. I know.
How dare you?
I think the weird thing was when I started posting a little bit to Instagram to try to like migrate some followers over there when the stuff was happening with TikTok. On Instagram, I would get some negative comments, but that's really it. TikTok is very positive. And I think I've kind of cultivated a very specific kind of following that maybe is smaller than a lot of the Bravo accounts, but because of that, I don't get the like crazy stuff. Like people know when they come to my account, I'm probably going to be defending the girls. I'm probably going to be talking shit about a man. Like they don't come to my account expecting anything else. So there's not that much to argue with me about.
Well, how dare you? And great, good for you. Good that it's all positive for you. Well, I was watching a video I think you made last night because we had the new episode of Summer House, and it ended with a Craig and Paige scene where they're at an Australian restaurant, and it really becomes painfully obvious why their relationship, to use a Lisa Barlow term, didn't go the distance. And by the way, like no fault of either. They're obviously just in different places. And, I think people want to make this a Scandival level event. And I feel like if we push a little harder, we're going to make it one. But in the reality of it, when you just listen to them talk, you're like, guys, sometimes it's just not the right time. And Paige truly never counted on Giggly Squad becoming the powerhouse that it did. Not to say Craig is not successful, but they're just like Craig does eventually want a slow life and she doesn't want to slow down. Why can't that just be enough?
I agree. And I kind of fell into the trap, unfortunately, I will admit, of getting a little bit too in the mix of that situation when things were getting really heated. I definitely made some harsher videos about Craig because I was just frustrated with it wasn't even anything Craig did. I was frustrated with the people who were defending him and saying like wildly misogynistic things about Paige and acting like she's like the devil for changing her mind over the course of a several year relationship. I think that the defense of Craig was unfortunate from a lot of people. And I was a little bit disappointed with his handling of things, I will admit. But yes, it wasn't that drastic of a situation. It was very normal. But I think that that scene showed a lot of the Paige haters are wrong in saying that she like blindsided him or she out of nowhere changed her mind. This was something that they had been discussing. This is something she brought up on camera. She was trying to communicate that. I don't know that Craig processed what she was saying, but clearly the possibility of them breaking up was a possibility because we see her say, "Are you breaking up with me?" in an Australian restaurant, which I love that line. And I think I need to go to that Australian restaurant and get the kangaroo skewers. I'm really curious about those.
By the way, they both agreed that they loved the kangaroo skewers, which I thought was great. They really, no, I mean, and what I will say, even in that scene, you see them both still genuinely enjoying each other. And that's the
Yeah.
part of it where I'm like, damn, like it's really interesting because I still don't understand. And this is like, I'm no Craig defender, but what I can't wrap, and this maybe is potentially my straight guy view, unfortunately, is that I don't understand why he needed to come in and defend her from cheating allegations when they were already broken up. He's not putting that stuff out there. The own it, like, Paige is the one that obviously this isn't working out. She's the one that ended this. Not that anybody's to blame, but she had to end it. Why is he then having to, like, obviously, I think this rocked him in a way that he will never fully be able to share with us or want to share with us. Why does he then have to go like, hey guys, I'm the guy that got broken up. Everything's good. It just turns out like, why is that on him?
For me, I don't think he needed to, and I think it was fine that he chose not to. That was his choice. But I just think that he has worked so hard to put this like good guy image out there that it would have made him look better, in my opinion. And I also would say that I think that Austin, when he was on Watch What Happens Live with Miss Patricia, whether he intended to or not, did fuel those rumors with what he said. I don't think he directly accused Paige of cheating, but he said that she was in a new relationship at that time, which was what the people were saying, the person she said that you were saying she cheated on Craig with. So I think whether he intended to or not, Craig's best friend Austin made that situation worse for Paige, and that I think is why I view it as something that he could have done if he was feeling polite. But I think we could tell from his Watch What Happens Live appearance, he wasn't feeling polite. He was pretty bitter, and that's fine. He's
See, I
allowed to
didn't read
be.
that. See, I'm glad we have our first sort of disagreement because I didn't read it as bitter. I mean, I felt like he gave a couple. He's like, listen, I grew so much, and in fact, tonight's Southern Charm, which I think I'm releasing this tomorrow, but tonight is Southern Charm, and Paige is on tonight's Southern Charm, and there is, I think, a talking head, or like they obviously have some scenes, and there's some not tension, but you can see another kind of example of maybe this had already reached its breaking point in some ways. But he says, listen, in terms of my drinking and all that stuff, Paige is the number one person. Like when I look at my phone, I have an app that says, what's the reason? He's like, listen, you can't be sober for someone else. You have to do it for yourself, but there are reasons that help you stay in it every day. And my app always says, number one, I do it for Paige. And by the way, I'm paraphrasing, so I know that still sounds bad because he does make a point of, I get that I have to do it and want it, but I wanted my life with Paige so much. And I didn't take this as a sad sack bullshit or like changing the narrative like Jax did with the Valley. But also, it's just one of those examples of life and like relationships change. And I think they both had this kind of view of we are the number one couple on Bravo potentially for a second.
They definitely did. And I am very curious to see who takes that mantle because it is open now. And I think Joe Bradley and Maddie Reese desperately want it to be them, but it's not going to be, in my opinion.
I love both of them, but I don't think, I don't think, no offense to Joe and Maddie. I think they are so fantastic, but I don't think, it's really hard because like, who do you point to on Bravo of like, that's the couple I'd like to emulate? Is there anybody at this point?
I don't think there is one. I think it's going to have to be a new couple that comes in and takes that spot because some of the Valley, not after that trailer.
Listen, the trailer, it says Danny's potentially grabbing ass when he's drunk. Jason maybe takes off his wedding ring at times. Like, they really seem to spread the wealth. And I think that also is due to the fact that they made Jax go to a mental health facility in the middle of filming. They wouldn't let him shoot from what I heard. So they really do have to spread the wealth. And I'm kind of okay with that because it's like, yeah, let's get these other characters. Like, everybody has a story.
Yes, I think it's for the best. I think that probably Kristen and Jax and Brittany recognized that they did the heavy lifting of season 1 and we're kind of like, y'all can do something now. But I will say, I think Danny and Nia were a great couple in season 1, and I hope that my view of that doesn't change too much in season 2 because I did really like them. But yeah, it wasn't great from the trailer.
I forgot what account posted this, but they said Danny and Nia are the only people that haven't posted something about being on the Valley season 2.
Oh, interesting. Well,
also,
I could see why from that trailer. But then again, if Michelle can advertise the show when she's being called a hooker by the father of her children, then...
So Jesse and Michelle Lally, we did a recap of the trailer yesterday, I think, and, that's really... we've seen a lot of below the belt things, but think about that, you guys. They have a young, beautiful daughter that they both love dearly. Think about saying, whether it's true or not, that even that your ex has slept with billionaires for $1,500 a night. My first thought was like, why not more if they're billionaires? My second thought is, why would you ever say this, even if you're looking for good content? Like, to me, that's beyond reproach.
Yeah, I agree. It crosses a line. And it's one thing for that topic to be discussed, but the fact that he specifically used the hooker word, like, that's going to be attached to her forever now, and he has to deal with that. Or she has to deal with that, I guess.
Well, what I realized, though, in that trailer, it's actual Daniel talking to Luke and saying, I heard a rumor that, like, so Daniel, I don't know if he's the one, Danny, that starts it, but it eventually gets to Jesse. And so I'm curious of how that all happens.
Me too. I was wondering if they just let Danny kind of have that moment in the trailer so that he was doing something and he wasn't actually the bone carrier in that situation, but I guess we'll see. I like him, though. I think he's funny.
Yeah, no, I got 3 under 2, and I also heard a rumor about Michelle that she's like, no, it's really wild, and it's like more disturbing because I think when we watch Vanderpump Rules, we were always like, well, at least they don't have kids, right? They're just toxic with each other, and the Valley's like, but what if they did have kids?
Yeah, it's so crazy. I'm so excited for it. I'm thrilled that it's coming back.
What is it about? I think it's like the climate we're in right now, but I think we need these shows kind of more than ever. And that's why I think when it's so exciting when we all agree on something or love something. And I think that was the Traitors for a lot of us. Would you agree with that?
Yes, Traitors is so good. I love this season so much.
Why do you think it works so well?
I will never be one of the people who thinks that they should do like a non-celebrity season because
they
I
do
love
that
it.
on the UK.
Yeah,
and
people complain that the way that we don't have it in the US. I don't want that in the US. I think it's the combination of all the people from all the shows. And I don't even watch all the shows. I don't even know the Challenge people. I've never watched that show in my life. But just seeing them together is so fun. And I don't know if you were a Celebrity Apprentice fan, but I was, unfortunately. In retrospect, I'm like, Jesus Christ, like I was supporting that. But
dude, I watched The Apprentice when it premiered on NBC Thursday night all those years ago, and I loved it.
It was so good. But I think that this kind of, not that I think Traitors is a much better show, to be
Yeah.
clear, but that was a show where you could see the most random combinations of like C-list celebrities doing crazy shit. And this is like the modern iteration of that. And hopefully there's no consequence like the consequences of Celebrity Apprentice.
By the way, hey, Dolores
Alan Cumming
Catania
becomes president.
or Dolores Catania in 2030 or whatever year it is. Wait, can we at least all agree that two things can be true at once? We can all love Dolores Catania, and she did not deserve to be one of the winners of the Traitors. Can we agree? Can you agree to that, Josh?
I agree. Yeah. I mean, she wasted the majority of her votes, but I think I would have
8 out of
felt
10 votes.
yeah, that's a horrible record. I would have felt bad if they cut her at the end, though. I don't know. Unless if they did her and Ivor, I would have been like, okay, fine. But if they just cut Dolores, which is what some of them have said they were considering doing, that would have been mean to me.
Did you see on Watch What Happens Live with Gabby, Dylan, and Dorit? They had that moment where like, well, we almost cut Dolores, but then we decided not to, and it was really. And I kind of like that decision, and I do like believing in like good-hearted people, even when it comes to reality TV and game shows.
Yeah.
And I like that though. I like that though they admitted that it was a thought at one point.
Yeah, I mean, it had to have been. Yeah, I'm glad that they said that was such a good Watch What Happens Live episode. I am obsessed with Gabby. They
Me
need to
too.
figure out something new to do with her as soon as possible.
Well, she's somebody like you that I discovered on TikTok way before the Traitors. Like I didn't discover her personally, you guys. I just see on my feed and I really enjoy her. And I thought, man, this person. I didn't watch her season of The Bachelor, and I just thought, man, she is so funny and she is so herself and so unique. And then when I found out she got cast in the Traitors, my first thought was like, this is awesome because if she makes it far enough, this is going to expose her to such a brand new audience. And it worked out perfectly. Whereas like she went to the end, so she had enough moments, and she can hold her own. Like on Watch What Happens Live, she's so funny. Like I think she just shows up so magnetic everywhere she goes. And like I wouldn't want to see her on a Real Housewives show, but I
No.
do want her in our lives in some way.
Yeah, they need to figure something out. It's funny, I made a video at the very start of the Traitors season talking about how Phaedra really used that show to like catapult into all of the success that she's having now. And I was speculating about who could be this season's equivalent. And I do think it's either Gabby or Dylan. But at that time, I was like, I hope it's Dorinda. And that, of course, could not have been farther from the truth.
Well, listen, I know Dorinda's going to keep getting shots. She says it seems like she has such a good relationship with NBC Universal.
Yeah.
They keep using her. So, and we still have the Bluestone Manor show that was like speculated about last year in the trades. So I know that Dorinda is going to be around, but sometimes I do wonder what that pipeline is because you have the Challenge, Survivor, and Big Brother players that get thrown into the Traitors, but then they're all competing for like Deal or No Deal Island, or we just got a new one announced today with like Spencer Pratt and Cynthia Bailey
Yeah.
and Atlanta.
Kim Zolciak. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, by the way, did you watch? Wait, are you on a time crunch? Are you still good?
No, I'm all good.
Okay. Are you having a good time?
Yes.
That's all that matters. And
it feels like it's been 10 minutes to me.
Yeah, this is what I love when it just feels like this is what it should be, you guys. Like we love these shows, even if you have like disagreements on small things, it should be exciting. But what did you think of Atlanta?
I liked it.
I did too.
I'm excited. I love Atlanta so much. That was one of the first Housewives shows I watched fully, actually. And then I caught up in time for last season intentionally, and then the last season was so awful, and I was like, why did I do this? But I'm so glad it's back. It's funny, I made a video that I thought I was very polite about the whole premiere, and I got a lot of comments acting like I said something really mean about Shamia just because I said that I'm not completely sold on her yet as like a central character.
Oh, I think I saw, you know what? And I saw that one. And by the way, I kind of like had a similar feeling because I was willing, like once I saw the first section that they gave to Shamia, I was like, who would have ever thought Shamia would be the glue? She calls herself the glue. Who would ever thought it? But also, she's really good in that first episode. And somebody like I'm now learning about HVAC and $430,000.
Who knew there was that much money in HVAC? I had no idea. I feel like I need to tell people about that.
But also then people came at me going, you don't know about HVAC? I know about HVAC. I just didn't know how much money was in, you could make with HVAC. You're throwing a $400,000 Rolls Royce. I am happy to have her be the center. And especially if you have Drew and Portia potentially getting into it with Dennis. We obviously have Kenya being kicked off at some point this season, which I think that's when we get in Phaedra. I mean, we got a lot of things to look forward to with that.
Yeah, I'm very excited. But I just thought it was interesting that people were so defensive of Shamia already. And I'm happy for her because having the fans behind you is a big deal. But I was like, y'all, I did not say anything bad about her. I like her. Like, I always liked her when she was a friend of. I was just saying, I thought the screen time balance was like a little bit off. And specifically, I wanted to see more Kenya because I love Kenya. But I understand why we didn't,
Well, and I think
obviously.
the door is open for Kenya still, from what
I
I
hope
hear,
so.
and I think that relationship, that's what I want in the next season of Traitors. Like, I really think this is a good chance to bring Nene back into the show and bridge whatever has happened between, I obviously we know some of the things that have happened, but Nene at the end of the day is really one of the top three Bravo housewives, I think, of all time, even if she's not been on for so long. So I would love, like, we have a whole generation of people now that didn't grow up with Nene.
Yeah, no, I would love to see her back. And I think for me, Nene and Kenya's relationship was always one of the most fascinating things about both of their presence on the show. So I would love to see both of them back on Atlanta or on Traitors or anything together. There were a lot of rumors about Kenya doing Traitors last season, but then it didn't happen,
Well,
unfortunately.
didn't Kenya do the first season of Traitors? Okay.
No.
No, I'm thinking Ultimate Girls Trip. Sorry. Because I was remember when she was sending like behind the scenes photos to somebody that she shouldn't be doing that with.
Love
The
her.
the other thing that we just got announced today, and this actually kind of surprised me. We got the announcement that Carl Radke from Summer House has announced he has a new book, and his new book is called Cake Eater. Is this what it's called? Oh yeah,
Yes, Cake Eater.
Cake Eater by Carl Radke. Josh, I'm getting so old in my days. What is cake? What was that? What's that? Was there a scene with cake that I'm forgetting with Carl?
Well, yes. I didn't even remember this until the video was made about it, but apparently in season 2, Lauren Workus threw a cake in his face. I vaguely have memory of that, but that's not what. Apparently, it's a Pittsburgh phrase that means you are.
Oh,
And what? But people in my comments said I'm from Pittsburgh and have never heard this before, so I don't really know how widespread it is. Carl says it's a Pittsburgh phrase that means that you are an upper middle class person who had everything handed to you, and that in the book he's going to be talking about how he is not a cake eater, which is interesting.
but the title Lover Boy is right there.
There are a lot of titles. I saw somebody
Like,
say, "Why isn't this called More Life?" Which I agree that would
oh
have
my
been a good
God, More Life would be
title.
great.
Yeah, I'm
Are you
not
kidding?
sure about Cake Eater or the
Like,
picture of him with the cake on his face.
well, I mean, dipping into Summer House, which we had a new episode on Wednesday night, and we obviously have this Carl Lindsay. Lindsay's pregnant. Carl hasn't had sex in a year, which to me I was like, yeah, that's not but I love how like Wes and Paige. Wes was like, bro, no way. Wes is so horny that he's so shocked somebody hasn't had sex in a year, and I'm like, yeah, work on yourself, dude. But it is interesting that Carl keeps bringing up the anger that he still has towards Lindsay, even though, I mean, to me, still, if you judge the show itself, he is the one that initiated that breakup. But I still understand that maybe he's angry because he got the feedback that he got from
I think
that.
that's it, yeah.
Yeah.
And
But
I
I
think
think
he
they're
was.
handling it well
Oh, they
together.
are. No, I agree. It's been really surprising to see that. I think he was bitter that because he kind of talked about this in his Vile Files interview a little bit, that was not maybe happy with how much press Lindsay was doing around the time that last season was airing, and that I think he was mad that he got portrayed not in the best way because of that. But he could have done press too. I don't. He claimed that Bravo told them both not to, and Lindsay didn't listen. I have no idea if that's true. If Lindsay wasn't listening, then Carl, you could have not listened also. But I think he is very aware. I think people were very quick during that situation to talk about how Lindsay is like a PR expert and she's so aware of her image. I think Carl is too, and I think maybe that's why they were so fascinating as a couple, but I think he's hyper aware of that as well.
Oh my God, yes. It's just that I think, and I'm gonna people come at me, but Lindsay's just better at it. Carl's aware, but it makes him more scared, and it
Yeah.
makes him freeze up. And we had that scene, which I always talk about, where he's talking to Kyle and Amanda in the bedroom, and he's like, "Well, because of this," and we have that zoom out, and we see all the cameras around them, and I'm like, if that isn't somebody so aware of what they're doing, which I think I would be a lot the same way and it really, but I'm not one of the like Gabby in one of the first. Gabby took a hard shot at Carl in one of the first episodes and says, "Oh, him with his non-alc and his phony teeth." I was like, "Gabby, slow down, man!" Like that actually stung.
No, that was harsh. I don't think that was her best moment. And since she has so few moments, I think that
I know
really stuck
that's
with people.
well, that's the if you are not a lead on this show, maybe don't go so hard when you're filling the Danielle role for Lindsay as a friend. But then the last 3 episodes, we have had Danielle, so I'm like, Danielle's getting more screen time being off the show than she was on the show.
Yeah, I have a lot of opinions about Danielle. I think it is so crazy that she, in each of the 3 episodes has been on, has taken every opportunity to get a dig in at Lindsay and her relationship. Like I don't I hope for Lindsay's sake that she is watching this and recognizing that that woman hates her because I don't see any other explanation for that.
Well, I see it as like a friendship that has gone on so long that you comfortably hit below the belt, maybe. Like, I don't know. I don't take it as extreme as that because I've seen Lindsay. I mean, listen, Lindsay in the opening episode of Summer House when Carl's trying to talk to her, he's like, hello, Carl. So. It's so funny. Lindsay is just one of those person that's so uniquely herself that you have to love her. And I know a lot of people don't, but like I really do.
I do
And
too.
yeah, I mean, like I love all of these people. And by the way, Kyle to me is the female Lindsay. It's just that people can't see that. Like he cries more. I mean, he cries more than Lindsay, so that's different. What is your take on Kyle and Amanda?
I try really hard to not be too mean to Kyle because I think he is important for the show, like Lindsay, and I try to recognize that. And I do. Like in the most recent episode, I was kind of applauding when he had the confessional about Craig being a liar and lying about getting kicked out of the wedding. That was a good Kyle moment.
Dude,
And
okay, so guys, what he's referring to, if you don't watch Summer House or don't keep up with it, is that it's been a long-standing rumor. I think it was first reported by Samantha Bush, Bravo historian, in an article. I forgot what publication it was, but that she got information that Craig got kicked out of Kyle and Amanda's wedding, and it was immediately shot down. Craig said it never happened. I mean, it was really where I was like, oh, maybe it didn't happen. I think people went after Samantha, like it was and then all of a sudden, this week's episode, Kyle's like, well, he did get kicked out of our wedding and he lied about that. There's no going back from that. And I was like, we finally have acknowledgement. And there does seem to be this weird relationship with Craig and the truth. I just don't understand why there's a weird relationship because this dude has no, I mean, you look at somebody, you're like, dude, you have everything going for you. What are you possibly benefiting from lying, even on Southern Charm, about JT calling Miss Patricia a bitch?
no, I fully agree. It's deeply bizarre, and I try so hard to like. I mean, I do like Craig generally on the show, but
Yeah.
I really don't understand that aspect of him at all.
And it's so funny when Kyle gets upset about another guy when Kyle's like, Kyle has really diva tendencies. And you're like,
Yes.
Kyle's like, that guy's got it. That guy's out of control. And you see Kyle be out of control so often that it really, but I think that's the other part of the show that I love is that like, being a hypocrite sometimes is so humorous and it's
Yeah.
essential to these shows.
It is. No, I think Kyle plays an important role, and I am very like protective of Amanda and try to defend her a lot, even though I definitely have some frustrations with her at times, which has I posted something the other day. TikTok has been really mean to Amanda, and I even saw that she posted something on her own TikTok being like, "Hey guys, like can you please stop posting all these videos of like all my breakdowns I've had on the show over the years?" But I think a lot of people are revisiting like the season where her and Hannah were having their falling out, and it's just timely that people are kind of bringing up bad Amanda seasons. But
It's the horrible trade off, and I will say this season, Amanda, and I loved on the first episode when she was talking about her mental health and getting her
yeah,
medicines right because I'm a huge proponent of that, and this is the first season where I'm like she's like looks really healthy and she's
yeah.
smiling more. Not that smiles equate to happiness, but she's just there seems to be a lightness about Amanda that we haven't seen the past couple of seasons, and if you line up Instagram things and the show, you're like, have we reached that point where people were accusing Kyle of cheating again? Like, remember that whole, I don't know what, that was like 6 months ago or time means nothing anymore. But do you know what I'm talking about?
I feel like that was at least I remember there being divorce rumors like right before they were going to start filming. So I think we're past when a
Okay,
lot
we're
of that
past that.
conversation was happening. So I guess they're not addressing it, which is interesting.
You also brought up, I think, a point in which, you know, obviously Kyle took it out on Paige, which at the beginning of this week's episode, we have this scene where they make up pretty easily.
Yeah.
And I thought completely ridiculous that Kyle goes to Paige. Like when it's like, you go to Craig, you go to Hannah. Don't know why you think Paige would be the option. But at the same time, if we go that two things can be true at once, Kyle had some really legitimate points about Craig and about Hannah in just terms of that interview with Call Her Daddy. Is that I was there when that season aired. Like I was there where I remember I went hard on Hannah that season because it became really not fun to watch. And what I love about Hannah is that she still succeeded regardless of like, which is that's what you want, succeeding without reality television. Like, but at the same time, don't try to rewrite history and say Kyle specifically got me kicked off the show when I'm like, I think a lot of people got you kicked off the show, including
Yeah.
yourself.
No, I think I agree with that. And that's kind of why it's hard as a big Page fan because
Because
I'm like,
you're a giggler, right? Is that what the fans are
yeah,
called?
I
Gigglers?
don't listen like religiously, but I do listen. And I mean I have a lot of respect for both of them, but yeah, I think Kyle had some valid points against Hannah. I agree. And I think that now that Paige and Craig are not together, my blinders are off a little, and I can admit, yeah, I mean, Craig probably was wrong isn't in his handling of that situation, if his behavior in every other situation that we've seen him in recently is any indication. So it's hard. I don't want to be on Kyle's side about anything. That's not what I'm here for, but I'm being forced to be. And it was also, I think, very unfortunate for Hannah that she had the Vanity Fair Oscars thing happen right when this was kind of becoming a thing on the show, because I think people would maybe have been more inclined to be sympathetic to her if that hadn't happened. But it was an unfortunate combination of things all at once for her.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, by the way, she steered her own ship. And I think these are like we can use reality television and pop culture to have learning experiences. Like, when I first started off, I was so ignorant about not knowing fully about microaggressions, but also I'm not defensive. And like, I don't like, this is not an eye roll. This is not these are conversations you can have that it's like, yeah, we can have these conversations and there is valid points of like, oh, that's what that is. Like, oh, of course. Like, oh yeah, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And I don't, it's just very interesting. And I think that can sometimes be a positive about reality television that we somehow make a negative, and it would be nice to not do that all of the time. As we start winding down, even though I want to keep this going for hours, what is your take that you get the most shit for? Like, is there something where like, you know what? This is how I feel about this, that you've had people like, are you a Tom Sandoval apologist? Which I know you aren't. Is there any take?
Honestly, I think it was Katie, and then society kind of evolved into agreeing with me, and that was very satisfying to watch happen during that last season, because that was the second season I had been watching. I caught up in time for season 10, so I was right before Scandival, but I still get to gatekeep and say that I was there before Scandival. But I remember when I started posting was for season 10 of Vanderpump Rules, before the scandal, and I would get so much shit about the Katie stuff, and no one liked, I mean, not nobody, but the
Yeah.
majority of the audience thought she was like a Debbie Downer, thought she was like unpleasant and mean, and that was a lot of the comments that I would get. Sorry. There's
Damn
a
it,
phone
Josh.
ringing.
This is a professional show. My God.
Who has a landline? I'm at my grandparents' house.
Oh my God, you're great. This is the best part of the show, by the way. Um,
I'm sorry.
so
I think
no,
it's over
God, no,
now.
dude, I have that album all the time. But isn't it sometimes nice to be in the minority as a Bravo fan? Like, I think that's what makes, it's like if you like somebody and the majority of people do not like that person, I sometimes really like that. You're like, sorry, I like him.
No, it's
I like him.
fun. I agree. And I also feel that way about Lindsay. I think I kind of was very hard on Carl last season and went hard defending Lindsay in a way that sometimes I think about it and I'm like, should I have done that? Like, I don't really know. I think the internet is very mean to Carl in a way that is not always justified, but I was very defensive of Lindsay and I did get a lot of shit for that.
Oh, wait, real quick about Wes and Jesse. You, I think, made a video maybe yesterday, or yeah, it had to be yesterday, I think, where you were saying, I don't really think, I think Jesse and Lexi, I don't really think Jesse's leading her on. I don't think really Jesse, it's not that bad yet. You also said, I think eventually it will get bad and he
Yeah.
will do something dumb. And I watched that video and I could see what you're saying, but then I think, in a sense, he is, though, because he's not taking those concerns to Lexi. He's taking those concerns to all the group that is just getting to know Lexi and almost poisoning their their overall experience with Lexi. So it's something if he was going to those concerns directly to Lexi, but he's having conversations with all of the girls like, hey, they can't say, she doesn't like me saying you have a fat ass on your Instagram. Like, that's crazy, right? Like, it's poisoning the well in a sense.
I can see that. I honestly hadn't thought of it like that, but that is an interesting point. To me, I felt like he was just doing his job of being on a reality show and having the conversations about
Yeah.
his feelings that he should be having, I guess, as part of the job. But that was, I mean, it is very rare that I will hop on TikTok and defend a man. So that took a
I
lot for
know
me
you
to
said
do.
you
But
even said
people,
that in the thing, and but by the way, did you see the preview for next week when he starts doing flirties with Sierra
yeah,
in the
and I'm
pool?
going to eviscerate him for that when that happens. But we have to wait to
And
get
that's an
there.
off week for Lexi because Lexi is not at the summer house next weekend. So then I mean, like Wes and like Emerald is so interesting as a new character because he wears his sexuality on his sleeve and he says he's open up front, no apologies. This dude's been in there one weekend and he's brought two girls home so far. And the way he is a god to Jesse and Wes is like they're like, oh, we have to act like we have feelings for these girls to sleep with them, and you're just sleeping with them and then cutting them loose. That's amazing. What is your overall take on Wes and Jesse? And I do include them as a pair.
I agree, they are a pair. I really loved them after last season. I thought they were great additions, brought new life to the show. But I mean, they are not at all the kinds of people that I would ever want to associate with in my life. And I try to separate that. And that's kind of something that I really do struggle with all of the Bravo men is like, I need to separate the fact that I would be disturbed by these people's presence in real life and recognize that that doesn't mean that I can't like them on the TV show. And I think I've been able to kind of have that with West and Jesse, where I can be critical of their behavior. I am generally entertained by them, though. And I don't think, in the grand scheme of Bravo men, they are that terrible, personally.
Well, give it time. Give it
Yeah,
time.
of course.
And I'll end with Ariana did an interview with People Magazine, I think, this week. And I loved this interview because she said, listen, I'm not cut out for reality television at this point. And I thought that was so honest. And also, that was like a lot of people's complaint, like Ariana didn't bring anything to the show. And I was like, I love that she's like, yeah, like I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to use my relationships as collateral or storylines. And she's in this really cool position where she doesn't have to now. Like she gets Love Island host. She has these gigs. Hopefully that keeps growing and blossoming. But then on the other hand, we just hit the 2-year anniversary of Scandal. And NBC Universal threw Sandoval a bone, I think, with putting him on the Traitors. And people laughed at him for the most part, but said, okay, we can accept laughing at Tom. Where do you stand 2 years, having been a core survivor of Scandal? Where do you stand?
I really struggled with the Traitors thing because I think at first it felt like the edit that they were giving him was, we're laughing at him, he's like ridiculous. And I still think that that was kind of the way that the show intended it, but I think the way that a lot of the audience received it was, yeah, like, okay, fine, he's like goofy, we don't have to be mad at him anymore. And I'm not saying, I don't know, I have a difficult time with it because I don't mean to say that we all need to be like still actively angry at him, but I also think that his behavior on the show was very horrible for many years, regardless of Scandival. I was always really like disgusted by him. And I think that it's hard to see people forget that seemingly and act like Scandival was the only reason that we didn't like him, because I feel like there were a lot of reasons that we didn't like him for a long time. But I'm very happy for Ariana's success. I was glad to see that story come out to kind of
Yeah.
balance out all the weird positive press Tom was getting. I think the Ariana thing was funny because it actually really reminded me of things that Stassi has said in the last couple years when she's like, I don't want people to think that like it was great when I slapped Kristen on TV. Like it's kind of, they've all kind of had this evolution of realizing that the things that made them good for TV a long time ago are not desirable personality traits.
And that's what makes it even darker that Jax is still in that same hole.
Yeah.
It's like you can't escape who you are. Like you can grow, but sometimes you can't escape it. And that's what it seems like. And that usually is with men because we're so thick in the head. But like it's really nice to see somebody like Ariana. It's like, man, what a butterfly, like just like, wow, this is really cool. And what do you think about Sheena and Lala and participation with the Valley season 2? Is that something you're anti? Is that something you're pro?
I didn't want them to be full-time cast members, but I think people acting like it's that bad. I went in the comments of one of the Bravo like accounts TikToks, and all of the comments were so mad about the trailer that they were even in it. I'm like, okay, they're gonna get like
We
a
already knew they're
couple
going to
up
be
here.
in it.
Yeah, it wasn't a secret. I was worried that they were gonna be like official friends of or like official cast members. They're not. We can live with a guest appearance, and especially Lala yelling at Jessie Lally, there are much worse things she could be doing. Like, I won't mind seeing that. But I do still have a lot of hostility towards Lala specifically in a way that I don't necessarily towards Sheena.
Yeah, I was on a show with her like 6 or I don't know how long it was ago now. And we kind of like I don't really get into it with a lot of people, but we got into it cuz Lala, well, not into it, but Lala was like, "You talk shit about me." And I was like, I talk shit about the situation. I said, the situation you came, like saying Ariana these things. I said, don't you understand? I said, if this is your take, then there is information that the audience is not privy to. And if that's the case, I'd rather just hear that. But like what we see on television, it did not come off warranted. Even if you're like, we're making a show, we've got to reach out to Sandoval. Like, no, you don't. You can point to like 30 examples of people that have not made up on reality television. And is that just production? Is that like, but that's like, I want to know then because it makes her look bad overall. And there's always going to be Lala defenders. And I'm not saying this is a, like Lala's just the worst, but it didn't make sense to me. Things
No.
sometimes just don't make sense to us, the audience.
And I think she was very taken aback by that because if you watched like interviews that she did at the start of that season, she was saying like by the end, like you'll all understand. And even when the trailer came out and there's the line about I never saw somebody who got cheated on and becomes God, she was like joking about that online and was like, it's not as bad as you guys think. Like they're just like hyping it up, and it was so much worse than we all thought. Like I think
Yes.
she genuinely thought that that season was going to vindicate her and was stunned when it didn't.
Well, and
And
then when they filmed the reunion and word got out that there was like a big blow up, and Lala jumped into a like kind of a press tour immediately that next week, and it really seemed like Lala was like, "Oh, you'll see. I gave Ariana what for," and that was not the case at all. Like it was. So I thought that was really interesting in how reality stars handle PR, from Lindsay to Lala to Jax to that's the moves. It's a 360 viewing experience, and that's why Josh the Roni Stan on TikTok, you need to follow him. And if you don't have TikTok, go follow him on Instagram. But really, I think each one of your videos is funny, insightful, thoughtful, and I really think you are very, very talented. Where do you want to go from here with this? Because this isn't a normal. Like nobody would have told me 5 years ago that I'd be doing this, and I don't think you would ever expect you be doing what you're doing. Where do you want to go from here?
I don't know, it's interesting. My day job was in politics. That is what I thought my career was gonna
Holy
be.
shit! Oh my
I
god!
Yeah, and
Wow.
then this happened and I got to get out of that, luckily. And now I'm just kind of enjoying the ride. I really do love TikTok. I think a lot of people, I don't know, I don't see it as something that I'm in a rush to like do the next thing, but I would love to do a podcast eventually. I just want it to make sense. I think there, I don't mean you in saying this, there are a lot of men with microphones that don't need them. And I
And
don't
by the
want to be
way,
one of those.
no,
But
no. And by the way, like that also, like I'm sure certain people think that of me, and I get it, but it's like no matter what's great, like I genuinely have loved these shows since the first night of the OC when I turned it on the first season, first night, and I always knew like, well, this is something left of center for my type of person. But I'm really thrilled and grateful that I get to participate in the sandbox at all. And I always said like I never need to be the head of the table or anything, but my God, I love like I got to look forward to having a conversation with you. We've never talked before. Like, I get to now think, like, I had a really good conversation with you. How is that? That's a really good thing.
yeah, no, we're all very lucky to be in this space, but you are definitely one of the good ones. You're not
No,
one of the bad men with a
give it,
microphone.
give it time. Well, I mean, listen, I think you just hope to be able to keep doing this. I'm really appreciative, and I'm really appreciative to get to talk to you. You are always welcome back anytime. I do think eventually a podcast is in your future, and whatever else you want to do. So I'm really excited to watch you and your journey. And I know that sounds so sentimental and sappy, like I'm about to die, but I think you're just doing awesome, man. And thanks for coming on and spending so much time with us today.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.